I think that this industry is very big. The total addressable market is huge. Even Guesty, with our size, are barely scratching the surface. So it's not like a market where a winner takes all and there is no place for new innovators to come grab market share. I think there always is. The problem is
it's a balancing act at the end of the day.
We understand all of that much better this way, and it is a people industry eventually, right?
You are listening to STR Global Unlocked, brought to you by AGL Atelier, the show where I speak with the leaders shaping short-term rentals worldwide. I am Simon Lehmann, and after 2 decades buying, selling, advising, and investing, I've built a network that spans continents and categories. This podcast brings that network to you. Real conversations, global insight, no PR fluff. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to STR Global Unlocked. I'm Simon Lehmann, and today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating founder journeys in our industry. A story that blends startup grit, global scale, and a bold vision for the future of the short-term rental technology. Joining me today is Amiad Soto, co-founder and CEO of Guesty. If you've been around the STR ecosystem for a while, you know Guesty is one of the most recognized platforms in the property management software space in our industry. But behind the company, there's also a founder story that began in Tel Aviv, went through Combinator, Y Combinator in Silicon Valley, and ultimately scaled into one of the most global players in the short-term rental industry. Amiad, it's fantastic to have you here today, and happy belated birthday. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the birthday wishes. I'm happy to be here and happy to take part of this amazing podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's get started straight away. In terms of you and your brother founded this company with Kobe, your brother, and Guesty over a decade ago, right? So the short-term rental market, the short-term rental market looked a lot different then. Take us back for those early days. What was the spark that set this entire Guesty thing into motion?
Yeah, so our story began even before we started the company. A year before that, both me and my twin brother were identical twins, had these experiences on hosting on Airbnb. Back then, they were a much smaller company than they are now. And we felt, that the amount of work that the host needs to go through is way too cumbersome. So we remember talking to each other about it and saying, like, there's no way they're going to explode and worth billions without something that will make it simpler. And we didn't do anything with it for like a year until we said, like, come on, they're growing really awesomely. We have to do something about it. We couldn't find anything that was based on Airbnb. Everything was old school legacy, OTAs and things like that. So we decided, like, let's build an automation tool. We were computer geeks. We wanted to build something that makes it easier. Our approach in the beginning was to build a property management company that they give me your keys and I'll take care of everything else. Pretty quickly, we got accepted into Y Combinator because the person who interviewed us was Paul Graham, and he heard from the Airbnb founders this exact same problem. And we showed him a demo of an AI agent. I'm talking 2013, an AI agent that responds to guest inquiries. Obviously, back then, the quality of AI wasn't anything close for us to launch it. So we focused on automation. And we were called Superhost, by the way, back then. We ended up changing our name 6 months later after discussing with Airbnb that they want to bring this name back. But anyway, we realized that our real focus on our real winning benefit is for us to build great technology and not by being a property management company ourselves. We didn't have any experience in being property managers, but we did have a lot of experience building technology. So we ended up pivoting outside of this world and becoming the tool for property managers instead.
So selling Superhost to Airbnb was already one of your small little exits to start with. But I would like to dig in
for free.
I would like to dig in a little bit more on the personal side here as well. While at that time you were unrecognized founder within the SDR space, how did that feel? Also being amongst Y Combinator and being granted into the program. Y Combinator is obviously a well-known fast accelerator in the startup world. And how did that feel for you? And what was the lessons you learned while you were part of that um,
Yeah.
network?
So, uh, first of all, YC, for everyone who doesn't know, is it's a prestigious startup accelerator. They're not hands-on, right? So the focus, at least back then, they weren't. The focus was to make a lot of progress, to schedule times with like top-notch, experienced partners. Who I remember meeting with the CEO of Groupon, the CEO of Exec, the CEO of Homejoy, and many, many others that help us navigate kind of like of our decisions. And I think that the most important thing that we learned there is to focus on what we know how to do well and to meet our customers, right? So we met our customers a lot. That led us to focus again on the technology rather than the cleaning and all the operational things that we did in the beginning. But I think that really something that really enabled us to grow substantially was when we learned the problems that our customers were facing were mostly around guest communication, were mostly around the Airbnb integration, and we understood that we need to help build a technology that makes that piece of the puzzle easier. So we started with that, and you mentioned that we were a nobody, and we were. I remember the conference we went to. We really went all in. We got like multiple booths, and like we got nothing, like zero knowledge of zero recognition. And we saw all the other tools in the market, a lot more legacy incumbents, and we didn't really understood why people don't get excited about modern technology. It took us a couple of years to get the traction that we were hoping to get from the get-go.
Before we fast forward, Amiad, what's for the early days? I've known you for years and I know how, persistent you are and how focused you are. What what was sort of like if you now talk to founders and people who are looking at similar opportunities, what is sort of what was the key experience or moment during this phase that differentiates you to where Guesty is today?
Yeah. Well, I will take it as a two-part question. The first one is, well, my key advice to someone who's starting their own startup these days. First of all, is no one knows if you're going to be successful or not. Not even the most experienced VC or the most experienced, startup founder. You really have to start working on this problem and meet the potential customers and see if what you're suggesting is something that they want to pay for. So I just like start, sell your product, and be ready to pivot because no one has the perfect idea from the get-go. Almost everyone start with something and then change course. Like we changed course like at least 3 times over Guesty career. Um, and you have to be agile enough to understand the feedback is helping you get to somewhere different. But you also have to start meeting customers early and put the dollar sign on it because a lot of the time the feedback would not be necessarily correlated with what people are willing to pay for. So you have to ask for money for your solutions. Um, and the second one, I think that the second part of your question was about what is different from back then to now. I think that the difference is that back then I was a jack of all trades. I had to do everything myself with my brother and maybe a bunch of inexperienced people we were able to hire with the little budget we had. And nowadays, Guesty is grown company with experienced executives that know how to run and build big operations. I think Guesty, it's okay for me to share the Guesty almost a 1,000 people company now, with 16 offices around the world, and we're growing really nicely and learning a lot about local markets that we're going into. So there's a lot of difference between what I did back then and what I'm doing now.
So let's dig one more time in terms of pivots. You mentioned 3 pivots. We're talking to founders. A lot of our audience are startup and entrepreneurs in all different technology, prop tech, STR tech, and you pivoted several times. You said 3 times, maybe it was more, but probably one of them were definitely quite fundamental. What brought you to that pivot point? And can you share one of which where you had
Yeah.
a clear direction for Guesty and then you decided, hey, we have to pivot here?
Yeah. So in the beginning, as I mentioned, we were underground property management company. I think that what really made us change is how much we hated managing cleaners. I personally cleaned homes myself after cleaners didn't show up multiple times. And my wife now, back then, she was still my girlfriend, was handling all the laundry for all these properties, and it was really cumbersome. But only when I met the CEO of 2 startups that tried to do the Uber for cleaners, I met both of them, and they both looked miserable. I realized that's what I'm going after. Okay, so I understood. Okay, I don't want to be miserable like these people. I want to be focused on what I do best, which is technology. Let's do property management in the cloud. Remember, 2014, the cloud was the biggest the biggest buzzword, just like AI is now. With 2014, that was cloud. So we decided, okay, let's be the property management in the cloud. We'll deal with everything for you, but remotely. There are some companies who are trying to do it now. I don't want to name anyone, but like I think that also was not market timing correctly. So we ended up doing that for like 6 or 10 months until we pivoted again based on who was paying us the most. So we focused on the customers who were paying us the most, and that showed us the path to focus on technology for property managers rather than doing the actual property management remotely for smaller hosts or
Yeah,
SMBs.
so it's interesting. We're focusing our podcast also a lot to the property management industry and basically telling them, oh, it's too cumbersome. So interesting how they take that. And we'll follow up on that a little bit later because you still need them. They're your customers. But I can relate to it, obviously. I mean, the human capital is still the most important capital in the SDR industry and will remain as such going forward to deliver good guest experience and managing the homeowners. You talked about the globalization or internationalization. Was it something that you at the beginning always thought about when you were like when you thought you were in the right track with the technology that you wanted to think big, global? I mean, you just alluded to how big Guest is today, but you know that's something we're seeing a lot in the conversations we're having with startups. You know, growing in a destination, growing in a region, especially when you're being supported by a Y Combinator and you're being exposed to some of these incredible entrepreneurs like Groupon, you mentioned several of them. I mean, that's a massive opportunity to learn and to probably to think big as well. Was that a material piece of your overall strategy when you said we wanted to think big?
Yeah, I wish I was that smart. I was I think we were mostly naive and felt like, hey, if we're in the cloud, everyone from everywhere can sign up. What's the problem? Um, and I think that led us to both the biggest success and also the biggest, hardships. Dealing with international, availability. I got calls middle of the night to handle stuff like it's like it's a big problem. And I think that if I would redo stuff, I'll probably start from a local region, growing to a regional, and then growing to a country, national, and then growing international. Um, it's gonna just create a path for more success, in my opinion. And a lot just because a lot of the companies we end up acquiring nowadays are companies went that route and got the major traction in specific regions. But to answer your question more broadly, our naiveness was also our biggest strength because the fact that we were too naive about like the going international is hard was also it also opened up the fact that we didn't have a lot of competitors in the international landscape. Most of our competitors were local. So it ended up giving us kind of like a place, like a blue ocean for us to swim in, especially in global marketing, because most of our competitors were focusing on the local marketing channels. So we just ended up growing nicely in that, but it also created a lot of hardships for us.
Yeah, we'll go there a little bit later in our conversation because I think that's one of the secret sauces that Guesty was probably one of the first PMS or property management system in the space, as far as I know, that has decided to go global very quickly without being able to accommodate all the local issues where everybody felt it's still a local business. But we'll get there in a minute. I want to talk about quickly growth and management team. Now, fast forward, you have incredible people like Vered, and you have Yair and many others, incredible technology people. Tell us a little bit about the evolution, and again, also for a lot of entrepreneurs listening to our show to think about how do I think about this? Because at the end of the day, the human capital, even in technology, is still the biggest challenge for a founder and entrepreneur like you.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, you get what you can afford. Let's be honest, and you can't afford a lot. So we kind of like hacked a lot of things, and we got a good person that just read about us somewhere, and like that's how we grew. Uh, Once we got a little bit more capital and investment from VCs, we got introduction to people with major experience. Like the beauty about the Israel tech scene is how small of a pond it is that you can get access to amazing talent. Um, and Vered, for example, took many companies in the early days and built them organizationally for going public. She was the first executive in Fiverr, and before that, she took a couple companies public. So it was a major fit and also a major culture fit. I think Vered, one of our first executives, and still is a major key in our growth. So when she joined, it's completely changed the atmosphere from a hackathon that has been running for 4 years to a professional run company with departments and processes, enabled us to um, lower the fire, and focus on the bigger picture. Um, and I'm very grateful for what she's done. She also enabled us to hire multiple great executives in her
Course,
that
that
followed
comes with
suit.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And many of the people that she hired are with us until now. So we have an amazingly long tenured executive suite. I think the newest are just our CFO just joined us this year, and our CMO joined us last year. But everyone else are like 5 or 6 years in the company.
Yeah, including Robin Clifford, who hang around for so long as well, which we always see on the tour at the conferences and enjoy the conversations. And
Robin,
what
a great account executive. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then obviously, having some great folks in the United States through some of your acquisitions as well, which is incredible, the team that you have built. But let's talk about quickly about culture. You mentioned that. How does a culture evolve over a decade um, within an organization? And not necessarily on Guesty, but, at the beginning, the culture is sort of infused by the founders, who you are, your DNA, and
Yeah.
then culture evolves, right? And that's something that is an incredibly important driver. We see big examples like Google and other large tech companies where culture has been at the sort of the center point of building the company.
Well, it took me a long time to understand what the word culture means, because culture in people is, it matters different things versus in a company. Eventually, a culture distills to what are the founders doing? Everyone else just copies what the founders are doing because they want to, make sure that they, you know, uh, are part of it, and they want to make sure that the founders are happy with them. So everyone starts copying the founders in the beginning. Whatever the founders seems to do appropriate, that's what everyone thinks is appropriate. Whatever the founders do not accept is appropriate, everyone don't accept is appropriate. So it's just kind of like a mirror, an echo chamber of the founders' beliefs and value system. Um, After a while, when you grow, the founders don't no longer are able to interview everyone. So you start trusting that the people around you know the culture so well that they can bring more people like them. Okay. And I still I still interviewed people up until like we went like 200. I interviewed everyone. And from 200 and up, I started interviewing only like team leaders and now directors and above.
Sure.
Um, it's just too time consuming. But the directors and above is still really important for me. And I think that everyone I touch, work with in the company still sees what my belief system is. We still try to make our like culture and values really being pronounced. I do an all hands every month where I share everything that's going on in the company because I want people to understand that the transparency and access to data is really part of our culture. It also, accessibility. I'm always available to the team, and I want the company to feel like everyone is accessible. This is, even though there is a, organization structure and everything, everyone are equal. I don't eat in different rooms. I don't drive different cars. It's all the same, right? And whenever I see, I don't know, like a piece of paper on the floor, I pick it up just like how I expect everyone else to do. There is no like ego or specific values that are different. And I think over the years, you asked about the evolution of those values. You're trying to distill those values and make them a lot more accurate.
Yeah.
But I think that like the core values of the company haven't changed a lot. I think that it really is about innovation and running fast and being the most professional you can, and building a team that cares about the customer, cares about our product, cares about each other. These three or four values like are very much the same as in our beginning, and that's why many people stay in Guesty for a really long time because they feel, it's part of an organization that they are relating to, and they relate to it really well.
Would it be fair to say summarization or summarize the culture, Guesty, play hard, work hard as well? I mean, you could say that Guesty is has a challenging environment, and you're pretty tough on results and deliverables, but
For sure, but that's what, when you hire amazing people, um, nothing else challenges them. They have to be challenged on the high standards, or else it will just leave. So there is a focus on amazing results and pushing people for excellence, but it's also because the people we bring on and we want to attract as well are of that nature. Okay, and we focus on high performance all the time, and we also, you know, want to make sure that the people appreciate the professionalism too, right? So I think that it's not a challenging work environment. It is a work environment that is focusing on excellence, and people who relate to excellence and professionalism, always learning atmosphere, feels that they can prosper in it. However, people who are looking for, like, I don't know, work-life balance, or things like, I want to spend more time on personal projects and things like that, they not necessarily, feel that this is the right atmosphere for them.
yeah. Fantastic. And, in excellence, you can pack a lot of things in. Excellence is can be seen in a lot of aspects. And obviously, you've managed to do that. And we see, obviously, your staff churn and everything else speaks for your own culture. I want to move on to one of the topics that is obviously super at heart for myself, my business in general, and that's the technology landscape, right? Um, you know, if you would do what you're doing today, Amiad, I would call you mad. But obviously, you've come a long way. And if you zoom back 5 years ago, we're aware of the technology landscape that we're looking at: 400 plus property management software and channel managers and guest engagements apps and whatever. And there's more apps coming every day. It's incredible what inbounds we're getting for AI tools, and even more fragmented across the value proposition. Let's zoom back for about 5 years. How did you look at the market 5 years ago, or even when you started? Because one thing you already alluded to, you looked at it more internationally, far quicker than many others. But in terms of verticalization, let's look at the market 5 years ago. What did you see in the tech landscape and what has
Yeah.
happened?
So I think that the market is changing a lot all the time. First of all, you did allude that there are many tools coming, and there always were. There has been a democratization of how easy it is to start a company and how easy it is to launch new projects. Like building proof of concept is just the easiest it's ever been. So more and more, and that's true for 2020, and it's true for 2022 even more so, and 2025 even more so. And I think that with every year, we'll see more and more proof of concepts bring to life, and that whoever is becoming successful, you'll see more and more professionals that attract to that one. So it always starts with a lot, and then it narrows down as the ones who are successful penetrate more market share. I think that this industry is very big. The total addressable market is huge. Even Guesty, with our size, are barely scratching the surface. So it's not like a market where a winner takes all and there is no place for new innovators to come grab market share. I think there always is. The problem is that it's also very complex. This market requires a lot of complexity. Like I always say, the Guest is not one product; it's like 50 different products, and those 50 different products is also a barrier to entry, meaning that anyone who wants to compete, what Guesty does, needs to do a lot of things, and that's expensive. And every year it becomes even more expensive to penetrate. But that's not to say that you can't penetrate with a single product and make that single product really attractive. And then you're not necessarily competing with the 50 products, but you are building the best single product that you can build. So Guesty has always been an open garden approach, not a closed garden approach. Even though Guesty builds more and more products, we are still a big believer in being great partners with everyone else and connecting via our marketplace to allow everyone to make their own choices on what's the best solution for them, building their own tech stack, basically.
It's a balancing act, right? We've seen Booking.com getting away from marketplaces and others. It's a balancing act at the end of the day. Can I ask you, are you spending more money on marketing or on R&D?
We always spend more money on R&D than anything else in the company, to ridiculous measures. I think it's getting to a point that we benchmarks don't apply to us because normal benchmarks is sales and marketing are the biggest men of the company. In Guesty for years until now, we spend more money on R&D than anything else. We believe that the product speaks for itself, and if the product is the best it can be, people will choose to take it rather than marketing telling them that. Um, Over the years, we did grow our sales more and more just because we wanted to be in more markets, and we also wanted to be more local in those markets because a lot of the property managers don't spend time online. They're busy on the ground, and we want to be there in their local market and able to explain and help their local communities. So we did grow that, but I think that the biggest focus for us has always been to innovate with our product, and we are still many years ahead with many of our products than anyone else.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about localization in a minute as well, because it intrigues me, especially as you rolled out internationally very quickly. But let's talk about consolidation first. And one thing that you said in terms of the fragmentation of the industry, and some say we definitely see clearly consolidation. Guesty has made several acquisitions, mostly for market grab and not particularly in technology. At the same time, what are we not going to see a two-system world like a Microsoft or an Android system in our industry? And what is sort of in between? What is your viewpoint on that, and
Yeah,
why?
it's a wise man. It will never give you a prediction on the future because it will always be wrong. I don't know a single person who predicts the future successfully. And yet, I don't think that it is a two companies market. I think that there will probably be like five or seven. You can look at the hotel industry where the biggest player
Yeah.
has maybe 16% of the market, and it's not that different. I think that, and the same thing goes for residential property management systems and others. I think that the reality is that you need to build um, a lot of things, and therefore it will be harder for 400 companies to coexist because the bar of entry just keeps going up, and that means that you need a lot of funding and you need a lot of resources to get to build a system that is robust enough to compete. So I think that there will be consolidation into 3 to 5 different companies that are on global scale, or some that are local, or some that are actually utilizing those 3 to 5 players technology and building on top of it. We have a lot of companies who are building on top of Guesty's APIs um, to build a better technology, platform for their own market, and we're okay with that. We are selling our APIs as another product as well. So I think that over the years, we'll see more and more companies relying on proven technology rather than trying to innovate all of the pieces. That's actually, you give the example of iPhone versus Android. That's exactly what's going on with phones. There are a lot of hardware companies building phones, but they ended up choosing software pieces just because of the complexity of building everything from their own. So they are taking, a Broadcom chip for their telecom, they're taking a NVIDIA chip for their graphics, and they were taking a software piece from Android. So they're building chips and building their own packaging and whatever makes sense for them. I think the Guesty could be the chip inside the engine that runs many of these other platforms that you're talking about. And it can also be a full system, like the Google Pixel, for example, where they own everything end to end to make it a fully integrated platform. So we believe in both, and we're building that into our future plans.
Let me be the devil's advocate here, Amiad, where Guesty proclaims we want to be the one-stop shop platform. Let's talk about short-term rental. Obviously, there are some other hospitality verticals you guys are
but
getting
not
in.
for everyone. Not for.
Okay,
Let me explain that one.
absolutely.
I think the Guesty can definitely be the end-to-end tool that no one needs any other tool, but not for everyone. I think that specialization matters, and if you need a specific use case, we can cover 80% of the use cases and be the best tool for those. But there are people out there with specific use cases. We always meet them, by the way. At our size, we meet amazing edge cases. For example, we met a company that do a lot of resort bookings with a lot of corporations, and each corporation want to control whatever group is managing whatever. It's good. It's getting really crazy. And we thought, okay, how many more people would use this? Okay, how many more? And if the answer is not a lot, we won't build it. We just decide, okay, we focus on the big stuff, and we'll let other companies come in and build those specific use cases that are relevant for a niche market. We're not a niche market builder. So whenever we go to a market, you asked about localization. I'm going to help you with a segue here. We go into Australia, for example, and we're going to build a localization into trust accounting for Australia, but we won't build the use case for trust accounting of Australia for X players in this size in this market, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we will build something that makes sense for a bigger market. And that's why Guesty is the best solution end to end for the biggest 80% of the market. However, anyone who wants something that is more nuanced, something that is very particular in nature, would come to us and build on top of our technology. Many people like their own version of booking engines. They want their own experience of owner portal. We really understand that. So we build our own APIs to allow them to build their own custom versions of those platforms. And we even connect them to partners of ours who build those tools to their standards. Okay, so we understand that, and I hope that answers the stop shop.
One-stop shop.
The one-stop shop, but for the ones that are in that 80%.
Okay. Yeah, let me go a little bit deeper here because I like this conversation a lot, and you and I had many interesting conversations across the past years. And if there's a startup right now who comes in with an AI automated guest comms tool, and he wants to integrate with Guesty, and you make that very accessible. We know other PMSs are very challenging to integrate. They need to bring 100 customers before they even talk to them and things like that. But why Look, at
That's
the
a
end of the
resource
day,
question.
yeah, that's right. That's a resource question as well. But at the same time, you could also say there is certain, and I understand the particularities that you mentioned. I mean, I totally get. But let's go a little bit more granular and say there's so much tech out there. And we talked about consolidation before. There's so many, like people say, I can build the best unified inbox that nobody else can. So I need an API. Guesty, you guys can do that with a flip of a switch. And these technologies will have it
It's
very
always hard.
challenging going forward.
The flip of a switch is harder as you grow bigger because you have so many use cases. So one of the things, smaller startups can build faster than we do because they don't need to worry about 10,000 use cases. They need to worry about, 50. So they build that tool really quickly, and we know across our big customer base that we have 10,000 use cases, and it takes a lot more time to cover all your bases. So I think that um, it makes sense that a company like that comes in and wants to use our API, and we allow it. By the way, if you look at the other markets, like look at Salesforce, for example, they wanted to be the best CRM, and they wanted to be the CRM that allows any tool to be built on top of it. And they are a $200 billion worth company, or even more than that. How? Because they opened the garden up. They said, I'm going to be the best CRM. Everyone should build on top of me. I'm also going to do my best marketing automation. I'm also going to do the best project management, the best service tool. They do all of that. But because they took the approach that everyone can choose them, their customers know that when they choose Salesforce, they don't close any doors for themselves. They will get the best of all worlds. And that's where we want to be as well. When people choose Guesty, they know, okay, I can go with that third-party tool if I want to, and I can also help Guesty build that, internally into my system. And we open those APIs from the get-go. We're API first company because we want companies to choose whatever is best for them.
I can't say you sold it to all me, but you have a very strong points, and it's yeah, absolutely. We've seen many different use cases in other industries that have worked that way, and let's see how this evolves. And it makes a ton of sense. And people, with your size, it obviously is very attractive to integrate to upsell their technology and their product amongst your customer base. So that makes an enormous amount of sense. I want to move forward, being also conscious of time. Talking about industry trends, with the size of your business, you see not just a market in Europe or in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia, you see the world, right? You have expanded. We heard in how many markets you are: US, EMEA, Australia, Latin America. What do you see? And let's not focus about general technology trends. Let's focus about the industry of STR in general. We've seen the last few years have been a roller coaster. Right? We have grown. COVID came, everything dropped, came back super strong, stronger than ever. So tell us a little bit how you, as the CEO of Guesty, looks at the STR market and the trends out there across the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, it's very hard to like when you look at across the world, you look at averages, and averages always hides something. Okay, so I hate looking at an entire world picture because it really makes specific nuanced data completely wrong. Just like averages. That's why I choose median over averages, because it's focused on the majority of the reality. And that's why I look at specific markets and not global. So I would look at, okay, let's look at the US and even break down the US into 5 different regions because they act differently. Um, and let's take EMEA and let's break it down to like East, North, all these kind of stuff and see if they behave differently. And whenever we look at those, we see, okay, now there's emerging trends that are a lot more clear. That if you take Southeast Asia, for example, you completely hide that there is a boom of vacation rentals in Bali, Indonesia, rather than if you focus on specific markets. And I think that the reality is, you know, we constantly monitor nightly rates, we constantly monitor occupancy, we constantly monitor demand, like how far in advance people book, as if we were the OTAs ourselves. We're not, but we care about our customer success. We care about to understand when will our customers go through a low season or a high season and how we can be helpful for them. And the beauty of it is because we're spread so global, we can have downturns and upturns in multiple, like in the same time. We can have an amazing rise and tide in Japan while we have a low season in Dubai. It could be really interesting to go there. And that's why we are very localized with our presence. We have customer success people on the ground in each market we open. We have account executive on the ground in each market we open. We want to be we want our own people to feel the same feels of our communities where we open them, so we understand, okay, they're going through a regulation shift, they're going through a change of trends, they're going through a demand shift or through a pricing pressure. We understand all of that much better this way, and it is a people industry eventually, right? So you need to be close to the people, you need to understand what the people are going through. As much as the world is transitioning to more AI, I think that more AI is in logistics, and the people matters most when it's relationship with owners, when it's relationship with guests, when it's relationship with team. So it really is a people industry.
I totally agree with you. And that's always the answer that we give when people ask me, hey, how does the market look like? It's like, okay, it depends. It depends. And I get that. But at the same time, we have a lot of common denominators in this industry, right? The pain with operating, the pain with delivering guest experience, cleaning. No matter if you do property management in Australia, Japan, Bali, or Latin America, Colombia, or United States, or Europe, it's the same. And that's what I love about this industry, right? So we're connecting guests with owners, and that's totally universal, no matter where you look. So in terms of your experience and providing your solution, and we have a lot of operators listening to our podcast, what would be the thing besides the market trends, demand and supply, ADRs, occupancy, RevPAR, all the things we can talk about forever, and we have data to support it. What would be sort of the macro pieces to operators that you would tell them for the next 12 to 18 months to look out for?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift I'm seeing right now is how people search online. And we're seeing that there's a big shift from, in the past, Google positioning and SEO was key. We're seeing an earthquake in the marketing domain, an earthquake of AI first. Even Google themselves, like half of the screen now is AI Gemini answered rather than it used to be. And I think that changed how you should market your own properties. You should no longer just count on channels getting you the full occupancy you want. You should start thinking about, how am I also going to be fore in front with more guests in the future in the world that's shifting in how people search online. It requires more content. It requires being there. It requires being there in content that AI understands. Because AI crawls the internet all the time, but there are specific places they look more than others because they're open rather than closed. For example, if you post a lot on X, it's only available for the Grok AI engine. Whereas if people ask on Gemini, it's really mostly around what's available on Google SEO crawlers and ChatGPT, which is the biggest of them all. Mostly is Reddit and other places because they already crawled on other places, but now it's no longer available to them. So it's like you need to be a lot more conscious of how to get to guests 12 to 18 months from now, right? So I think that you're starting to feel the cracks as we speak. You can't just throw money at it and believe it's okay. There's more and more people who are changing how they search online. I see it myself too. Like whenever I used to search for like places around me to go for dinner, I just ask Grok now, or I ask ChatGPT if I'm next to I'm on my phone. But it really is a question of, will the future look the same in how people book my place? And I think that the answer is definite 100% no, it won't. And you need to be asking both the younger generation and also yourself, where do you book places and how is that different? And don't just count on yourself, also ask around you because it's changing a lot.
That's an amazing nugget, and I cannot relate even more to it. My 5 children, they don't even use Google anymore. And depending on whatever they do, it's just like it has significantly changed. And I think that is what everybody needs to look out for. Operators, while we're trying to optimize our business, have the right tech stack, revenue management, all the things remain extremely important. But I think the way the guest searches and what role does Airbnb,
Yeah.
Booking.com, and other OTAs play with that will be very interesting to see. And I'm also looking forward to have Glenn Fogel on the show, and we'll definitely have a conversation about travel search and how that evolves over the future. Before we just wrap up, and there's so many other things that Amiad and I could talk about going forward. Capital, and this is a back to the Guesty story in a way. You have raised significant amount of capital. You have seen how capital flows within the STR from an investment standpoint, starting with VCs, moving into growth capital, and then obviously private equity, even stronger. I mean, you have a pretty impressive cap table, and one day, hopefully, a very successful IPO. But how do you view the investment world within the SCR's tech? We have a lot of entrepreneurs, as I said, people raising capital. Things have changed. You believe now there's a couple of large ones who address so much capital, Guesty, Hostaway, and a couple of others have received a lot of growth capital. How is that going to evolve? Because we have not seen companies of the size that make it attractive enough for investors of that magnitude.
Yeah, I think that it's much easier now than it was in the beginning because there weren't real comparison. When we started and when we raised capital for this industry, people just felt, okay, Airbnb is successful. Why should you exist? And potentially, it was very hard to convince them there is even a market. Nowadays, it's very clear there is a market, so it's easier in that sense, but it also is harder when there's also big companies now to compete with. And with that regard, I think that capital is always allocated to where there's opportunity. And yeah, I think that there is a big opportunity still ahead of us. As I mentioned, we're only scratching the surface, and that's why capital continues to be allocated to this market. I think that there's a big difference with capital from private equities. We're just trying to, you know, capitalize on a specific working business, making sure that it's turning profit more and more until it returns on their investment a couple times over. Whereas venture capital is mostly focused on growth and how do we grow this 10 times, 20 times, or things like that, even while being not profitable. I think that there is very difference in both respects. And most of the funding I'm still seeing in this industry is of private equity, which means that they just see a working business. They want to get a majority stake in holding it. They want to flip it after a couple of years. And we've seen it several times in our industry with couple roll-ups and some investments as well. Some of the names you mentioned are mostly like majority share sales rather than capital raises for the company. The money didn't go to the company, it go to the pockets of the shareholders rather than to invest more in their future of the product. And Guesty, we're really proud that all of the money we raised went into, our investment in building better and bigger products. And we still believe that there is a big room for growth in our future, and that's why we're mostly focused on continuing to grow the company and continue to grow the product as well.
Fantastic. I totally get that. And definitely a big difference between some other companies that raised a significant amount of capital from other investors as well. And it needs to be seen how this industry is evolving and what role is Guesty, as a closing thought from you, going to play in this industry on the long term.
Yeah, I think that Guesty not only is the only one who took the approach of being global first, but he also took the approach of being there for both the enterprise and the individual host. We are very unique in that regard. I think that still to this day, no one do enterprise better than Guesty, and no one does individual hosts better than Guesty too. I think that ability to go full spark of every type of host is unique to us. And we've done this just because we understand that the needs of those are not that different. And we want to be there for any type of host anywhere in the world. I think that our position in the market will remain strong and growing even bigger as we continue to consolidate this industry. We continue to innovate. We continue to build things that no one else has, and attract more and more of the strongest voice in the industry as well. For example, with our launch of the franchisee product that no one else has in the industry, we were able to attract the benefits of Casago, Vacasa, and many others, Alojo in Australia. I think that that's specifically really shows the strength of the Guesty platform.
Well, Amiad, you never miss the opportunity to do a good pitch for Guesty as well, but it's been great to unpack your journey. You have really shared some significant nuggets also for startup founders and people who want to come into this STR world and continue fragmentation, continuing to be, do we see 5 or 7 players going forward? Hopefully I will see that myself, but once again, thank you so much, Amiad Soto, for joining us at STR Global
Thank you for having
Unlocked.
me.
And it is a great pleasure. Unfortunately, I'll be missing Guesty. Well, thanks for the invite. Maybe another time. I wish you good luck with the show, and looking forward to see you around very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon.
That was STR Global Unlocked, where we say what others won't. If you got value from today's episode, send it to someone who is still playing it safe. Follow the show and get more global insight at ajlatelier.com. The globally recognized STR consultancy I founded and that proudly brings to you this show. More bold conversations are on the way, so stay tuned.